Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. We are so glad you are here today. We're going to give everyone's audio just a second to get caught up and see how that's going. It looks like we're getting more people popping in. So we're just going to give that a second to get caught up and then we will get started. See, I think we're going. So a special welcome to all of our students out there. We are really grateful that you're able to join us today and to meet some of our scientists, to make a connection to some of these amazing animals that we're learning about. So I'm Megan Marrero. I am with the National Marine Educators Association and Mercy University in New York in the United States. And my co-host here is Jay. Jay, will you introduce yourself real quick?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, good morning, good day. My name is Jay Williams. I am the learning specialist with the Canadian Ocean Literacy Coalition, as well as the Blue School Canada coordinators. Welcome to all our Blue School Canada teacher members.
Yes, we're so grateful to have everyone here today. So you will have access to the Q&A at the bottom and also the webinar chat. Your chat should, I think, might just come to us as panelists, but we'd love to hear where you're calling in from today because I know we had some people registered from all over the place, and you're going to hear that our scientists are from different places as well. So would love to, if you can chat us in. If not, you can use the Q&A and just tell us and we'll be able to do it from there. But we encourage you all to ask questions along the way, and we'll try to answer your questions, and our scientists will try to answer your questions while we're going, because we have so many people presenting to you today that we're not going to have a ton of time for questions, actually. And before we get started, I just want to take a moment to think about where we are and to think about our ancestral lands here in North America, in the Caribbean, in Hawaii. We, our indigenous folks in our area called it Turtle Island, and we are all a part of Turtle Island. We are all sharing one global ocean, and we are all connected. And that is a wonderful way to think about the work that we all do. With that being said, I am going to turn it over to Doug Wilson, Joshua Soul, and Kaylee Gregory from the University of the Virgin Islands for our first presentation.
Thank you. With any luck, you're seeing a presentation? Can anybody confirm that for me?
Not yet.
Ooh, I thought we had that working. You sure you don't have to click on the other one up at the top there?
We're seeing that arrow from your from the WAV file, I think.
Man, I thought we had this. You're right, I see that too.
I can give it a shot if we'd like.
And while you're doing that, I see we have some friends from New Rochelle, New York. I also live in New Rochelle. We have some folks from Queens, New York. We have some friends from Hawaii, some friends from Portugal, Long Island, welcome, welcome, New Brunswick, Canada, Calgary, Wilmington, North Carolina. Okay, I'll shut up now so that we can let our scientists talk, but we're glad you're all here.
Okay, this is why I have graduate students. They take care of the presentations very well. So my name is Doug Wilson. I'm from the University of the Virgin Islands. I run the Ocean Glider Lab. I'm an oceanographer, physical oceanographer. I want to talk about using passive acoustic equipped gliders to assess marine mammals in the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. And I'll be helped today by two of our graduate students, Kaylee Gregory and Josh Soul. We're part of the University of the Virgin Islands Center for Marine and Environmental Studies. Next. And this one's not working either. Oh, there it is. All right, Josh, just start that and let it run. So again, we're part of the UVI Ocean Glider Lab. And ocean gliders, you can see up at the top, there's a group of students. There's an ocean glider in the water. there's a non-working graphic showing a glider going up and down. Ocean gliders are uncrewed autonomous platforms. They're ocean robots. They're about 2 meters long, about 150 pounds, 70 kilograms. They adjust their buoyancy to go up and down in the ocean up to 1,000 meters deep. You can navigate them by steering a course while profiling. So we can send them out into the deep ocean for a month or two, and they regularly collect profiles of salinity, temperature, and oxygen. But we can also configure them with other instruments, and they surface regularly to transmit their data and receive new instructions about where to go. So our lab was established in 2022. We have 2 of these ocean gliders, and we have partnered with the NOAA Fisheries Southeast Science Center and Unmanned Systems Operations Center to place recording hydrophones on these gliders. Gliders are nice and quiet. They spend their time underwater. And so we're listening for whale acoustics to help assess what marine mammals are in the Virgin Islands in Puerto Rico. Next. Keely.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Keely, and I'm a graduate student in the UVI Glider Lab. My thesis is essentially trying to predict when and where cetaceans can be found in the Caribbean based on the habitat characteristics of an area, such as how deep or how hot or cold the water is. The word cetaceans is the scientific term for whales and dolphins, and there are 2 main types of cetaceans. There are toothed whales and dolphins, scientifically known as odontocetes, and baleen whales, scientifically known as mystocetes. On the left side of the screen, there's a long list of species of toothed whales and dolphins that are most commonly found here in the Caribbean. And these types of cetaceans have normal teeth and feed on a variety of marine creatures such as fish and squid. On the other hand, on the right side of the screen is a list of the 3 main baleen whale species most commonly found in the Caribbean. And baleen whales are filter feeders that eat very tiny marine organisms called plankton or krill. These types of whales do not have normal teeth, and instead they have baleen plates made of long, flexible hairs that filter seawater through them to catch the small plankton and krill. Okay, next. So in the bottom right corner here is a cetacean occurrences map created by the World Wildlife Fund, showing colored dots for where 4 different species have been recorded surrounding Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. And then here are 3 of the cetaceans that are most commonly seen around the Eastern Caribbean. When and where they can be found depends on a variety of factors and can be very different for each individual species. So humpback whales have annual migrations. They spend winters in the Caribbean where they give birth and raise their young in warm, shallow, protected waters that keep the babies safe. And then they spend their summers in the Northeast off the coast of Maine and around Eastern Canada, where they feed in the cold, plankton-rich waters up there. For sperm whales, only the males migrate, only the adult males migrate, while the females and calves remain in the tropics year-round. Adult males can migrate as far as to the ice packs of the Arctic and the Antarctic, and sperm whales make incredibly deep dives to find their primary prey species, which is the deep sea squid, and can be at depths of over 1,000 meters. And then lastly, most of the dolphin species found here in the Caribbean choose their habitats based off the amount of food available. So areas that have seamounts, which are like underwater mountains or underwater ridges and slopes, tend to attract more prey species and thus more dolphins. That's it. Next.
Hey everybody. So as you've heard, my name is Joshua Saul. I'm another master's student in the Ocean Glider Lab. My research is a little bit of a precursor to Keely's, so I am mostly focusing on just the acoustics. I'm listening for whales, specifically low frequency sounds, and trying to find out where they are and how we can use this information to inform conservation. Moving on with cetaceans, all of these cetaceans produce some sort of sound. Toothed whales and dolphins and baleen whales produce them differently. Toothed whales and dolphins have these specialized air sacs and thick membranes called phonic lips in their nasal passages, so their nose, and they create higher pitched sounds, so things that sound like a higher noise. Some of which, as you can see on the right, are outside of these pink vertical lines, which is a human hearing range. So we can hear a lot of the low frequency species But a lot of the sound that high frequency species like toothed whales and dolphins produce, we can't hear in our normal hearing range. You actually have to adjust the sound that they produce to be able to hear it properly. So on the right here, you can actually see each of these blue lines with those black ones attached is kind of the normal or average range of sound that each of these species on the right produce. And adding that with baleen whales, we have kind of a more simpler noise production through the voice box or the larynx, just like we have. They produce lower frequency sounds like songs, grunts, moans, among many other things. So the baleen whales do not, in fact, use echolocation like toothed whales and dolphins use, listening for sound bouncing off of objects for hunting and navigating. Unfortunately, we do not have sound. We tried to have sound that we could, let you hear a humpback song, but these two images are called spectrograms. They are essentially how you visualize, how you can see sound. So these two are for my own data processing. You can see these kind of white lines showing humpback sound. So this vertical line is not, it's actually our gliders making noise, but here you can hear what's called an upsweep. So this is like a whoop sound. And here on the right is what's called a downsweep. So these lines that are going down are more like, ooh. So that's as best as I can do imitating a humpback whale without playing it for you. So apologies for that. But they produce all kinds of sounds. And these are in the lower frequency range. So this is about 400 to 600 hertz, which may not make a whole lot of sense to you, but it's much lower. This is something that humans can hear. And as you can see, there's a lot of these lines. So there's probably a lot of humpback individuals making these noises. Lastly, we also created a database for the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico for anybody to access freely and to upload any data that they find. So if they see whales or dolphins in the waters around these islands, they can actually upload, they can take pictures, they can upload and input all this data that anybody can use. The database is in English and Spanish, so we are trying to be inclusive of anybody in the area. And the data set can also be downloaded. So as it builds over time, anybody can access the data set as well and use it for their own purposes. So, there's a lot of really cool things coming out of these projects.
And I think that's it. Thank you. I just wanted to show this one picture on the right from a few months ago. We mentioned the humpbacks arrive seasonally, and this one here is in Brewers Bay, which is a few hundred meters off the dock of the university, which caused a good stir when that one showed up. It's right next to that anchored boat. So thank you.
Thank you, Doug, Joshua, and Kylie. And
Thank
to
you.
our friends in the audience, just to let you know, any resources that are shared by the speakers will be compiled in a separate document and shared with the recording of the video at a later date. Our next speaker is Valerie Busque. Her pronouns are she, her, and elle. Her role is a public outreach educator at Parks Canada in Saguenay, St. Lawrence, Marine Park. And without any further ado, Valerie, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Jay. Can you see my screen there? Okay, great. So hello, everyone. I'm very happy to be with you today. My name is Valerie, and I work for Parks Canada at the Saguenay-St. Lawrence Marine Park in Quebec, Canada. Let me tell you what my team is doing to help endangered beluga whales get better in their southernmost habitat, namely to restore quiet places for them. I now work as a public outreach educator, yes, but I used to work as a biologist studying beluga whales, so I'll tell you more about it. What is Parks Canada? It's Canada's national park agency. Here is the map of Canada with the Parks Canada network of national parks, national historic sites, and national marine conservation areas. On behalf of the people of Canada, we protect and present nationally significant examples of Canada's natural and cultural heritage. These are among the most iconic places in Canada. The park where I work is indicated by the blue dot surrounded by a circle in the province of Quebec here on the eastern part of Canada. What is the natural habitat of the beluga whale? Well, is it the warm waters of the Caribbean Sea, the icy waters of the Arctic, the St. Lawrence River and Gulf, or freshwater rivers? Um, I'll give you the answer right now because it's a very short time I have here. So answers are 2 and 3. So the icy waters of the Arctic and the St. Lawrence River and Gulf. There are 7 beluga populations in Canada. Most live in the Arctic, but one lives away from the others. Look at the red circle on the map. The St. Lawrence estuary population is genetically distinct from all other Canadian beluga populations. The St. Lawrence beluga live at the southern limit of the species distribution. So we are very lucky to be able to watch an Arctic species so far south of the Arctic Circle in the St. Lawrence River, estuary, and Gulf. Belugas have been living here since the last glaciation, so at least about 9,000 years ago. Their habitat was suitable for their essential activities, vital activities: feeding, traveling, socializing, resting, reproducing, and taking care of the young ones. In the 1800s, there were about 10,000 individuals in the population. In the early 1900s, commercial fishing on cod had been going on for about 4 centuries and had severely depleted codfish populations. At the time, fishermen thought beluga whales were causing the decline of cod stocks, so belugas were hunted down and killed in the hope of bringing fish populations back up. Subsidies were even offered to fishers who brought back beluga tails. They were so efficient that the St. Lawrence beluga population almost got extinct until scientists realized that belugas eat mostly small fish and only few cod. Hunting ended in the 1950s and was officially banned in 1979 in the St. Lawrence. Nowadays, the St. Lawrence beluga population numbers around 1,850 individuals. The population has not yet recovered and is still listed as an endangered species. The population faces other threats now, such as pollution of water and air from industrial and urban activities in the Great Lakes and St. Lawrence River system. This water system is shown in dark green on the map, which means that water from rainfall over the dark green area eventually flows downstream into the St. Lawrence River and Gulf, thus into beluga habitat. Pollution affects both the health of belugas and of their food. Thankfully, regulations of pollution has had a positive effect on belugas' health. Contaminants concentrations have been trending downward, and there is no cancer found in beluga whales since 2011. St. Lawrence beluga whales also face threat from increasing marine traffic, whether it's from noise, collision risk, or disturbance of their essential activities. Sound is very important for toothed whales like belugas. They use sound to navigate, hunt, and communicate. How can we protect the St. Lawrence beluga whale? Well, part of the answer is creating marine protected areas. So the Saguenay St. Lawrence Marine Park was created to help the beluga whale in its core habitat. So this is where belugas carry out all the activities that are vital to their survival. It is also where protection efforts can have the most meaningful impact to help the population recover. The presence of boats and the noise they generate can change how whales behave and disturb their vital activities. Regulating maritime traffic can help protect and restore the beluga's acoustic environment and thereby improve their population's chances of recovery. In the marine park, boat speeds are limited where belugas are and other whales as well. So it's just like in a school zone. Regulations in a marine park also include minimum distances to respect with whales, so 400 meters for endangered species like beluga whales and blue whales, and 200 meters for other whales. When I first started with Parks Canada a long time ago, I was hired as a biologist to continue a scientific survey that had been going on for years and years, decades even. The survey of beluga whales from the shore has been taking place since the 1970s at the Point Noir Lighthouse Station, the one I show you here on the left image, and later in Baie Sainte Marguerite, where I worked. It has been done almost only by women scientists for the last 50 years, so I'm very proud. Actually, I feel privileged to continue their mission. I felt privileged to continue their mission at the time to better understand the life and habits of endangered beluga whales. Through Parks Canada's study and with the collaboration of many other research organizations, we were able to identify the most important places for beluga whales in their habitat. In the area shown here, at the mouth of the Saguenay River, Parks Canada teamed up with whale watching tour businesses to develop a speed reduction measure. So since 2018, boats must reduce their speed from May to October, anytime between May and October, in order to reduce underwater noise. So thanks to effective collaboration with whale watching tour businesses and training of their pilot every year, now 95% of tour boats reduce their speed at the mouth of the Saguenay Fjord. There are not only commercial boats, but also pleasure boats. So in the summer, the Saguenay-St. Lawrence Marine Park is a tourism destination. In summer, most part of my job is to raise awareness among boaters. I go to public wharves and marinas to meet pleasure boaters and tell them how they can navigate without disturbing beluga whales. At Baie Sainte-Marguerite in the Saguenay Fjord, we were able to, let me start this here. We were able to close the bay to navigation. This short video will show you since the implementation of the area closure, boats were avoiding the bay and beluga whales. So the blue dots are where the belugas are, and the yellow lines where the boats pass. And now we can see that boats move away from the bay that is protected, the area closure. So with our partners in conservation and tourism industry, we invite visitors to observe beluga whales from shore instead of going on the boat. It is the best way to see belugas without disturbing them. Whale watching boat tour companies can still go whale watching, but aiming at other whale species. Restoring quiet places for belugas in their core habitat is not the only thing we must do to help the population recover, but it is surely a very important one. We must find better ways to coexist with whales as we share the same planet. When we gather the best knowledge through science, gather people and organizations towards a common goal, and work together, we can face these challenges. Thank you.
Thank you. What interesting work. And I love the women scientists connection. So next up, we have another woman scientist, Claire Lacey from the University of Hawaii. And Claire, we will let you take it away. Can you tell us if those sound checkboxes are available now? Still no.
See
Okay.
that, but
Thank you so much.
hopefully you can see a screen share without the Zoom box. Hi everyone, thank you for inviting me to chat with you today. I'm excited to tell you a bit about spinner dolphins and the work I've been doing in Hawaii. So my name is Claire Lacey. I'm originally from the UK. You can maybe tell from the accent. And I've been working with marine mammals now for 20 years, and I've spent the last 4 of those at the Marine Mammal Research Program based in Hawaii. Now, there's a lot of geographic spread on the call today, so just to be sure we're all talking about the same place. The Hawaiian Islands are located kind of in the middle of the Pacific. There are 8 main Hawaiian Islands, and our lab is based on the island of Oahu. Looking at the east coast of Oahu, there's a large protected bay, Kaneohe Bay, and Coconut Island, our lab is right in that bay. So we have to go on a boat to get to the office every day. But it's a really cool place to work because it's not just marine mammal scientists there. There's lots of coral reef biologists, fish biologists. So it's a great place to learn and study the ocean. There are 25 different species of cetacean, that's whales and dolphins, recorded in the waters around Hawaii. And they range from animals that are here all year round, such as some of the dolphins, to regular visitors that come every year, like the humpback whales, as Doug mentioned. They migrate annually, and kind of anything in between. We have some species that you never know quite when they might show up, some that show up just very occasionally. Now, I called this talk Finding Naya, and Naya is the Hawaiian word for dolphin, And in particular, I work with the spinner dolphins, which are these ones here. So let me introduce you to these wonderful little dolphins. One of the first things you might notice looking at the photo is that they have a really long beak or rostrum. In fact, it's so long it made it into their Latin name. So longirostris just kind of means long beak. Like many other ocean species, they're darker on the top and lighter underneath, which is very common. It gives them a kind of camouflage in the water. And these are quite small for dolphins. They are between 5.5 to 7 feet in length and normally weigh around 165 pounds. The males are slightly bigger. Why are they called spinner dolphins? Well, if the video will play for you, it's because they spin, and they spin more of a twist than a somersault. You can see adults spinning here, and you'll notice that the calves, the babies, need to practice. They don't get that right to begin with, so it takes them a little time to learn to spin properly. They eat a selection of small shrimps, small fish, and small squid, and these prey are found fairly deep in the ocean. Because the prey animals are so small, spinner dolphins need to eat a lot of them, and it can be hard to catch a lot of food deep in the ocean. Spinners are smart though, and they've learned that during night, once it's dark, the prey animals move up to the surface into much shallower waters, which makes it much easier for the dolphins to feed on them. And as a result, they've kind of gone nocturnal, and they feed primarily during dark hours at night. And if you're feeding at night, that means you have to rest during the day. And that's exactly the pattern that we see with Hawaiian spinner dolphins. Once the sun comes up, they move close into the coast, and they spend their day in the protected, sheltered waters, so close to the coastline, you can kind of see them standing on the beach. They spend this time resting and socializing, and then once it gets to late afternoon, they move offshore again, ready to start another night of feeding. So I kind of like to think of spinner dolphins as familiar strangers, and I call them this because in some ways we know a huge amount about them. They've been studied since the 1970s, but in other ways we know very little. So things we do know is this daily cycle I just told you about. We know what they like to eat. We know some of the areas they like to rest during the day, and we do know some information on their social behavior. But there are lots of things we still don't know. This includes how many there are, and also how they move around the islands. And this seems quite basic information, but it can be hard to get that number. There are probably lots of other things we don't know as well. But answering some of these questions is where my job comes in. Specifically, it's my job to try and find out how many there are and how they're moving around the islands. To do that, we need to get out on the water. So we usually use a small boat like the one you can see on the left here. But if the coastline's really rugged or very long or quite remote, we sometimes need to use a plane as well. And we have to get on the water a lot in order to get enough information. This map just shows the track lines around Oahu that we surveyed to try and find dolphins. So each of these lines was us in our small boat trekking around the island. The red square is not dolphin relevant. That's just an area we're not allowed to go into. When we find our animals, one of the things we do is to try and get photographs of their dorsal fin. That's the fin on their back. We like this feature because they can't come to the surface without showing us this fin above the water, which is super useful. And it often has natural markings on it that we can use to recognize individuals. They may look something like this. This is a very extreme example. This dolphin has obviously had injuries in the past that have healed now, which have left a very distinctive fin shape, which we can easily recognize. They may look like this instead, a lot less extreme, but still very easy to recognize. And in some cases, the marks may be smaller. AI has actually made my job quite a lot easier because we can now use that to trace the shape of the different fins, and you'll see the yellow line on this slide. That's the AI tracing of the shape of this fin. The program can then match those tracings to offer up pairings in the catalog. Kind of imagine a giant game of dolphin matching pairs or spot the difference. And this can take a long time. We collect hundreds of thousands of photos, well, tens of thousands anyway. This can take a long time to process. So I think I've got 90,000 photos from the Big Island. But this information is definitely worth the effort. We can get some really good stuff out of it. And when I talk about movements, this is an example of what I mean. We have 6 different points on here. All of these are locations where we've seen the same animal. So now we know that rather than just using the sheltered west side of the island, they also use the east side to rest during the day as well. And this is new information that we didn't know before. And this type of thing is really useful when planning out different conservation or management measures, because as we just heard with Valerie, we want to make sure we're protecting the right areas if we're using habitat as a form of protection for animals. And that's me pretty much out of time, but if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A box or email, and I'm happy to follow up that way too.
Thank you so much, Claire. We have one message in the Q&A that we've tagged to be answered live once our presenters have shared their knowledge with us. With our next speaker that will be presenting her area of focus is Marianne Marcoux. Her pronouns are she, her, and al. She's a research scientist and adjunct professor. She works with Fisheries and Oceans Canada and at the University of Manitoba. Over to you, Marianne.
Do you see my screen? Am I all good?
Yes,
Yeah,
you
okay.
are good.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. This is a picture of me at my office where I go every day, and I'm lucky to work on, I think, the coolest whale. Obviously, I'm sorry, everyone, but I'm lucky to work on narwhals, and I'll tell you in the next 7 minutes why I think they're so cool. I want to say a special hello to the class of Madame Denis in Winnipeg, and I'm from Winnipeg. So to locate you a little bit, narwhals are a strictly Arctic species. So this is a map of Canada, including Alaska and Greenland. And in turquoise, you can see where you can find narwhal. So this is the distribution of narwhal, with the exception of one narwhal that seems to be lost a bit, and he's been visiting the belugas that Valerie was talking about earlier. So if we really want to see a narwhal, you're going to have to travel to the Arctic. It's a strictly Arctic species, so it's very well adapted to cold, icy water, and that'll be important in my talk. So the most, I think, intriguing feature of narwhals is their tusk. I have one here. I wish I could kind of pass it around, and with my screen, it's hard, but like I have one here with me, and it's actually a tooth. It's a canine. And it grows from the upper left side of narwhal. And it's found mostly on male. So females don't have tusk, or most females don't have tusk. What's very cool about it, it's an extreme case of asymmetry. So most things in nature are symmetrical. You can think of butterfly, the 2 wings are the same, but narwhals, they have a tusk on the left side. So that's pretty unique. This photo shows a little bit better how it comes out from the left side. And on this one, there's some exceptions of narwhal who have 2 tusks. So on this image here, you can see the skull of a narwhal, and you can see how it comes out of the skull. And this one has 2 tusks, but even in cases they have 2 tusks, usually the left one is bigger, longer than the right one. So it's still quite asymmetrical. So other things that, things that narwhal can do with their tusk is that we've been able to document narwhal that use their tusk to stun fish. So on this video, the narwhal is swimming. You can see a school of fish here, and you can see it giving small little stunt, small little hit with their tusk. And we think it's stunning the fish. And if you really slow down the video, you can see the mouth opening, and you can see the narwhal eating the fish. But in general, we believe that the tusk is a sexual organ for sexual display. So probably the longer the tusk, the bigger the tusk shows the fitness of a male, and it helps female to decide which narwhal they want to mate. So I just showed you a video of narwhal eating fish. So narwhal eat fish, and they use something we call echolocation to find their prey. So you can imagine narwhals live in the Arctic. In the winter, there's no sun at all, so it's very dark. And they also dive quite deep, so it's very dark. So they don't really use their sight to find their food. They use a sound. And we had the first talk a lot about the sound, so you should already know a little bit about it. But the way it works for echolocation, narwhal make a click, and it hits a fish, it comes back to the narwhal, and then they can know, oh, there's food for me there. Narwhals also use their echolocation to navigate. So this example shows narwhal kind of navigating throughout the ice. But in reality, their sonar is very narrow. They actually have the most narrow sonar of all the whales documented so far. So you can picture it as a flashlight, and it's very small, like a laser. So it's very precise. And what we think, so this image I took 2 days ago when I was putting this talk together, it's where narwhals spend the winter. So it's a satellite image of the ice between Greenland and Canada, and you can see all the ice, and there's just small cracks of open water. So you can imagine narwhals dive 1,000 meters to go feed, and then they need to come back up, and they need to find this hole in the ice. So they need this very precise sonar. So that's one reason why we think they might have developed the sonar. Oh, I jump. I don't think anybody can hear that sound. No. So here is a spectrogram of the sounds that narwhal can make, and we saw one in the first talk. So I'm going to also try to make you narwhal sound. So they make whistle, which are those lines here, and it sounds like a whistle, and I can't really whistle. And these here, they're broadband, we call them pulse calls, and they sound like sheep. Something like that. So these narwhal also use sound to communicate with each other. So they can use sound to communicate with mom and calf, but also sound to find mate, and sound to coordinate their group. So sound is very important. One issue we have, and Valerie touched about this too, the ocean is getting noisier and noisier. So these are just a few examples of things that make noise in the ocean: ship, fishing, also exploration. So, and it's especially true for the Arctic. So the Arctic used to have much more ice and used to be covered with ice for a much longer period of time. But now there's less ice, so there's more access to shipping. So this figure, it's a bar plot, and on the y-axis you have from 1990 to 2015, and on the, so that's the x-axis, and the y-axis shows you the kilometers, thousands of kilometers traveled by ship, and you can see the bars are getting bigger and bigger. It just shows that there's more and more shipping traffic. And about 2006-07, it seems like it even jumped a bit. So this means for narwhal, there's more shipping around them. And this is quite worrisome. It worries me, it worries more scientists, but it also worries Inuit that live and rely on narwhal. So this picture was taken at a protest, and they were protesting against a mine who was suggesting to increase their shipping traffic, and Inuit were quite concerned. They still rely on narwhal for food and for culture, so their narwhals are very important. Inuit also know so much about narwhal because they live there. That's their backyard, that's their food, that's part of their culture. So they had a question, and I work closely with them because I'm trying to do science that's meaningful for them. So they wanted to know if shipping was impacting narwhal. So they've been giving us samples of skin and blubber like this one that we were able to use. And we had older samples from 2000 to 2006. That's this box on the left. And we had newer sample, and remember there was more shipping now. So from 2013 to 19, and we were able to measure the stress in these samples. So we were measuring cortisol. And this is just like an index of stress. And you can see that the box in the newer year is slightly higher, showing that narwhals are probably more stressed. And what does that mean, and why do we care? So as I try to explain, like the sound is so important for narwhal. It's important for finding food, for navigation. I put a killer whale here because that's one of the predators of narwhal, and they might be able to listen to be able to pay attention to killer whales. But now with more sound in the environment, this is all masked. They have a harder time to hear for killer whales or to find prey. So it's going to be just harder and harder for narwhals. And I like to finish with a pretty video to say that if you want to help, I think just by being here today and learning and being curious, that's a great way. And feel free to ask questions after the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm appreciating hearing all about different technologies and how they're being used to study all of these animals. So thank you very much for sharing. Next up, I'm going to welcome Amy Gollenberg, she, her, from the Mystic Aquarium. And she's going to give us a little bit of a different perspective on cetaceans.
Thank you. And trying to get to my share screen here, so sorry. Give me 1 second here, so sorry.
All good.
There we go. Okay. Okay. So thank you. My name is Amy Gollenberg, and I'm the director of school programs at Mystic Aquarium. And I am here to share with you a little bit more about some of the two species that I've had the most experience with in education and research programs at the places that I've worked, one of which is Atlantic bottlenose dolphins. Like you see pictured here, one of my old buddies, Eva, she was actually 50 years old in this picture when we posed for it together. And another that we've heard mentioned already is beluga whales. And scientist Valerie gave a great overview of beluga whales in the St. Lawrence. And I've also had the pleasure of helping to care for them and teaching people about research with them here at Mystic Aquarium. And I've been here for almost 10 years now. And one of the viewpoints that I really wanted to share today is a little bit different, and it's looking at the values of research that's done in human care, because some of all the studies we've been learning about so far are taking place out in the open ocean. But in order to really get a full perspective on understanding about these species, it's really important in the cases where we can, where we have them in human care and have this incredible resource, is learning more about their anatomy and physiology, for example, and establishing those baselines. And that's so critical to understanding and being able to protect them fully if we want to do that, which we do in the open ocean. So, for example, one of the things that, having them in our care is they develop such great relationships with their trainers and the bond that they form that we can collect samples non-invasively. So that's a fancy way of saying, it might be a little annoying, but it's harmless. And so, for example, to get a blood sample, you can, both the dolphins and the beluga whales in the places I've worked are trained the trainers will hold their tail in their lap and be able to collect samples like you see here in the veins of the tail fluke. And it's important, like those baselines. And what does that mean? When you go to the doctor, for example, they take your blood pressure, they take your temperature, they might take a sample of your blood and see what your values are looking like. Well, how do they know if you're healthy or not? If your temperature's over 98.6, there might be something going on. So this is what I mean. We have to know what the norms are for these animals in order to really assess if they're healthy when we assess the populations in the wild. And so it's critical that we take advantage of these great resources. Now, there's regulations that apply, say non-invasive. Obviously, when you go out and study whales in the wild, not just anyone can do it. You have to have permits to do it, and both in Canada and in America. So there's regulations that apply. And also the same is true with animals in human care. So zoos and aquariums, they have licenses that they're regularly checked on. But that's not the case in every country. So there's also organizations that are looking at optimal standards. So these are all certifications that we have at Mystic Aquarium and the places that I've worked as well. And those regulations look at minimum, but we're looking at optimums of animal care and research that we do and the education programs that we provide. So it's just something that's important to note. And the first place that I worked with bottlenose dolphins was a place called Dolphin Research Center in the Florida Keys. And I had the privilege of, in all the places I worked, including Mystic Aquarium, we do research with the animals collaboratively that are in our care, and we also support research in the wild. So one of the things, for example, I've had the privilege of seeing and going out and help document is this crazy, amazing synchronized mud ring feeding. Earlier, one of the scientists had spoken about the spinner dolphins, Claire, and spinner dolphins in Hawaii, and some of their intense feeding behaviors. And this is another example where, and the dolphins are working together as a group, and this is very sophisticated. They have to collaborate, they have to communicate, and they will literally pile drive a school of dolphins together. And then they'll take turns and they will break out and they'll create what's a mud ring by swimming at the floor of the shallow bay, and they'll kick mud up, and it literally will scare the dolphins right into the fish right into the dolphins' mouths, like you see here. But that kind of feeding behavior, obviously you have to study that in the wild. However, in order to do it and understand how it's done, you need to know more about how they communicate and about their cognition, which really just means how do they understand their world. And so the research in human care, in order to break those codes, when I was at Dolphin Research Center, they were looking at those things. So how do they communicate with each other? In this study here that you see, for example, you see this dolphin that has soft eye cups covering its eyes, and then they would give a signal to this dolphin on the right, and they would see if this dolphin that got the signal of the behavior would tell the other dolphin what to do. And how did they tell them? So, and usually it's mostly through body language. And so that's an example of trying to crack the code of the communication. In another study that they're doing on cognition and how the dolphin brain processes and information around them, is looking to see, like has been done with other animals as well, is their concept of numbers. Do they have a concept of numbers? And do they understand more and less? Are they actually able to count? And why would that benefit a dolphin in the wild? Well, if you think about it, are they actually doing calculations in their head, for example, of, well, geez, if I have, a small school of fish that's only 100 feet away, but I've got a huge school of fish that's a half mile away, is it worth my energy and my buddy's energy to go over to that huge school and feed on that one instead? So who knows? We're still trying to crack all these codes, and it's going to take some time. But these are just examples of things that we, in order to really fully understand those feeding behaviors and how they work in the wild, you really need to understand more about the intricacies of their communication, cognition, and also their physiology and anatomy. So, and when I was at Dolphin Quest Next in Hawaii, that was exactly some of the things they were looking at: the physiology, the dive physiology, the lung capacities, what the blood work is like, and their heart rates and their reproductive physiology and how they raise their young. So all of these things are things that we can look at in human care more closely. Also had the privilege of helping with wild studies that they had supported when I was working for Dolphin Quest. And we learned a little bit about the spinner dolphins, and a lot is known about the spinner dolphins in Hawaii, but not much is known about some of the other whales, like the beaked whales, for example, that they were looking at. And they actually discovered in their research that there was an endemic species of false killer whale. And that's basically what that means. An endemic species is something that's so genetically unique, it's different and it's unique. It could be its own species or subspecies of a different type. And so that's exactly what they found. And they're looking at some of the things that threaten those species. So we learned, and here I am at Mystic Aquarium now. We don't have dolphins here, but we have beluga whales, which are just as cool in my opinion. And we've learned a little bit about their distribution from Valerie, which is great. So, and a little bit about what makes them cool, like other toothed whales. They have that echolocation ability, which is amazing in and of itself. And that's something that we know more about because we've studied it in human care. Our own US Navy has been fascinated with this for many years, and that's because toothed whales or odontocetes do it so well. And they actually can do probably better than what we can do with our own sonar systems. So it's pretty amazing. It's a unique ability, and again, to really understand the physics of how it works, so the Navy can try to replicate it. The only way to really effectively study that is with whales that you have in your care, in human care. So it's imperative. So our beluga whale research, we're headed up by team Dr. Tracy Romano. We're one of the few zoos and aquariums that actually has their own, we've employed our own full staff of scientists. We have our own lab at UConn in Avery Point, at University of Connecticut. So, and we've contributed to over 38 studies on belugas in the wild and in human care. And why care? Why care about a toothed whale? Well, they're an indicator species. So as a top predator out there in the ocean, as one of the in the top of their food pyramid, their health can indicate what the health of the ocean that they live in is like. And so if we're seeing, for example, they have blubber, right? That's one of their great adaptations of a whale, is to help, and it has many functions, including helping keeping them warm. But blubber's fat, right? And you store toxins. We all store toxins in our fat. That's where we store it. So having all that blubber, that also means you're a powerhouse to store toxins as well. So Valerie had mentioned about that St. Louis population and how the toxins were causing cancer. They were making those links. Again, if we're to understand the health of these animals, then understanding how the blubber functions and how that can affect their immune system and break down the immune system is critical. So in order to give the evidence that's needed to prevent the toxins to enter the system, these things have to be established. And also methods. So using finding out through whales and human care non-invasively in a way that's again, might be a little annoying, but certainly harmless, is looking at new ways of getting methods. So normally, if you want to know the true health of a whale, typically you'd have to take its blood, and get those cortisol levels. So when we were talking about narwhals earlier, she mentioned looking at the stress and how do we measure that? She mentioned the cortisol, and that's a hormone that tells you how stressed out an animal is. Well, how do you know? How do you get those baselines? And so that's one thing that we've actually helped to develop. One of our scientists, Dr. Thompson, has figured out a way to measure cortisol along with a number of other things through the blow sample. So it'd be like taking your snot and from your snot being able to tell if you're a male or female, if you're a female, if you're pregnant, around about how old you are, and your cortisol levels, whether or not you're stressed out, and even your DNA. So they can get a makeup of who this animal is. So imagine now you go out in the wild and you have a much less invasive way of being able to figure out the answers to these questions. And they're working on ways to develop the methods so they can even do it where they're going alongside the whale. And can they use a drone with the blowhole cup to collect the sample? Or do they need to put a stick out that's at what level, at what height do you hold the stick to collect the sample to see if it gives you that right sample and the same information? And we can ground truth it here. So we know our whales, we can take the blood on our whales voluntarily and we can compare it to that blowhole sample. And if we have the same results, then we know that this method really works. And so these kinds of things can help, get that full picture of what it's like to be a beluga or a bottlenose dolphin or a narwhal. We don't have narwhals in human care, but they are the closest relative of a beluga. So it could help with that as well. And we also help out with wild research too. And our scientists go out and help with the beluga counts. And also Dr. Romano is a close colleague of Marianne's, and she also recognizes the incredible value that working with the native tribes of Alaska can really bring you, and that information that it can bring you, where they are truly vested in wanting to protect these animals because it's part of it. It is their way of life. These animals play such a big role. So the historical knowledge that they have of the populations and the local knowledge that they have is incredibly important. So we work with them very closely and share information, which is imperative to get the full scope. So thank you. And I'll turn it back in case there's questions.
Actually, thank you so much to our presenters who generously shared their knowledge and expertise with our gallery full of participants. We have several questions and we recognize we're running up against our time box. So if you can stay, please do, and we'll run through these public questions together. If you cannot, then you can circle back and see the responses and listen to the responses in the recording. So I'm going to put this out there for our presenters. If you would like to answer the question, then you just unmute. The first question is for Lisa Briesloff. Do you ever see any accidental beluga whales south of their normal range in the Atlantic? So I'll repeat that. Do we ever see any accidental beluga whales south of their normal range in the Atlantic?
Yes, I can, if you don't mind, Valerie, I can answer. It's rare, but they have been spotted traveling down, they've been spotted in Cape Cod. There even have been belugas noted in the Long Island Sound between Connecticut and New York. So, which is very much out of their range. Although rare, it has happened.
Valerie, would you like to add anything to this question?
Yes, in the maritime provinces in Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, there have been sightings of belugas, but very rarely.
Thank you. And our next question from Charu G. Please forgive me if I mispronounce that. It's a two-part question. I love two-part questions. Do we use AI mapping tools for keeping track of their habitats or any other application-based mapping? That's the first question. And the second one, just to complete it, any citizen science projects available for participation of youth? So the first one about AI mapping tools, Doug and your team, Marianne, Valerie, Amy.
Say that we're early in the process, if I wanted to say that, but that's certainly the direction we're headed, especially in terms of the habitat suitability and matching the whale detections with habitat.
Doug, I believe the first part of your response was cut off. Were you speaking to elaborate on the AI mapping
On the AI,
question?
yeah.
Okay, if you don't mind, can you just start that again?
Oh, I just said we're early in our assessments, but that's someplace we're headed, especially in matching detections with habitat characteristics. So.
Thank you. Marianne, did you want to chime in? Please go ahead.
I didn't mention, but Claire did mention about surveying for their whales. They're using planes, so we do the same for narwhal. We use plane to count them. So you saw the map of where they are, and it's very big. So we gather thousands of photos, and normally, so they have a GPS point, so for mapping. And then we're developing AI tools to detect narwhals in those photos. So it used to be a human that would go through all the photos. Now we can use AI. And I was just going to mention the Beluga Bits is a citizen science project. And I'll give Jay the link. So if people are interested, that's something that you can be involved in.
Thank you, Marianne. And Amy.
Hi, I just wanted to answer the question about citizen science. And everyone's from all over, which is fantastic. And some of us aren't close to the coast or able to do a beluga count. But a couple that I would recommend that anyone can help with is the International Coastal Cleanup, which is basically collecting marine debris. And it's not just along the coast of the oceans, but lakes and rivers and all along the watersheds. So that's a great one. I'll share a link with you as well. And another is water quality testing too. There's also a great resource for that. That's ECHO, and they do it internationally. So that's another great one to get involved in.
Thank you very much to our scientists. I will close this two-part question, and I'll volley the next question over to Meg, my co-moderator.
All right, thank you. Another person was asking about live streams. Are there any live streams you all know about? For some of these animals, observing some of these animals. And this participant also said, we're not sure if you've heard of Snapshot Safari. They have an incredible platform where citizen scientists can help document observations. So just wanted to share that. But anyone recommend any live streams? Amy, I'm not sure if your hand is still up from before or you had an answer to this. Sorry. No. I think we might be able to crowdsource that one from other sources, so no worries. So I have a couple of questions coming up. Oh, I'm sorry, Amy, did you want to go?
Oh yeah, real quick. I'll just what I'll do too is I'll also share a link to we have feeds, live feeds of some of our animal habitats, so that might be something interesting for the kiddos.
Oh, perfect. Yes, we'll conclude that in our follow-up materials. Thank you. So we do have a couple of questions on belugas and a couple of questions on narwhals. So let's do belugas first. So one of our classes wants to know, how do belugas survive in the warm waters of Long Island Sound? Also, other than fish, are there any other animals that they eat, and a little bit more about how they communicate? So maybe Amy and Valerie could tag team that one. I don't know.
Sure, if you like, I can quickly start with the Long Island Sound question about surviving in the warm waters. I mean, the blubber is very effective at keeping them warm. It's also very effective at regulating their body temperature. So I would say that, you know, they weren't here for long, and hopefully made it their way back up north, I would imagine. So, but they're pretty adaptable as well. It's not ideal, but pretty adaptable.
As for food, apart from fish, they can eat marine invertebrates like marine worms, mussels, and other various types of fish, but mainly small fish like capelin, herring, and sand lance, here in the St. Lawrence at least.
Thank you. Let's see. And then maybe a teeny bit more on communication, or maybe just clarify, because we got another question on communication. Valerie, do you mind clarifying a little bit about beluga communication?
Yeah, beluga communication is very similar to narwhal. Actually, Marianne explained that they use echolocation, and Amy also talked about it. So they use echolocation to locate themselves in their environment, but they also use sounds like clicks and musical sounds to communicate together. And so some researchers recently discovered that there was a typical sound that mothers and young baby newborn would share. It's a very unique sound that they use to recognize each other. So it's a very interesting. But I think research is still needed to better understand their communication. Maybe Amy wants to say more.
No, I think you covered it well. It's true. This and you know, we're still trying to crack those codes, like we say, but it's, you know, communication and understanding how noise can affect that is critical to their survival in the wild as well.
Thank you. All right, now we have a whole barrage of questions about narwhals. So it seems like Marianne, you're on deck here. So can narwhals grow back their horns? So what happens if their horns break? And let's see, do they have any natural predators? And why is it that when they have the longer tusk, that means that they're more fit?
Okay, so I'll take out back my tusk. Actually, this tusk I bring to schools and it got broken. So that's a good question. We just glue it back together. It doesn't grow back. And actually, we see narwhals with broken tusk. So, but it keeps growing like throughout the life of the narwhal, but it doesn't grow back. We think it's pretty costly probably to grow the tusk, and it's probably heavy too. So that's one reason. But there's some studies that show that if you look at other traits of narwhals and that reflect their fitness, they are related with the tusk. So other traits as size, testes size, and other things are related with tusk size. So that's how we think it's probably a good indication of their fitness. And what's the last one?
Are narwhals blind?
Oh yeah, and then the predators.
Oh,
The
they're-
predators are, yeah, natural predators is the killer whales. And they've been there for a long time, but maybe now killer whales might be spending more time in the Arctic because they are not Arctic species. They need to get away, but now they might have more access to narwhals. And narwhals aren't blind, but they're mostly so they can still see. But you can, when you think about it, when you open your eyes in the water, I mean, their eyes are not exactly the same, but it's not a very good way to feel their environment. So they can see, but they rely on the sound to feel their environments.
Thank you. We're going to punt one more question to Claire so we can close up and let our scientists get on with their day. But Claire, we have a question from a classroom in New York. They would like to know, why do spinner dolphins spin?
That's a great question, and I would love to know the real answer to that too. We think there are several different reasons why they might do it. I mean, honestly, if you could, wouldn't you do it? It looks like it would be fun. I would do it if I could. Some people think it helps to shake parasites off the body. I'm sorry for the noise. That's my parrots in the background. So some of them have parasites called remoras on them, which are like fish that suck onto their skin. And when they spin, you do see those come off. So it does work to shake them off. But lots of dolphin species have those remoras and don't have the ability to spin. So that probably isn't the only reason. It's also you often see it in social contexts. So most likely it's a social behavior. Maybe it is a form of communication because it makes a big splash. And so it makes a loud noise under the water. So yeah, probably something social, but we don't know that for sure.
Thank you. Well, I just want to say thank you very much. It was so interesting learning about all of the work you're doing, the different technologies you're using, what you've learned so far, and what you're still trying to learn about all of these species. And we really appreciate all of your time today and your expertise, and for answering all of these questions from our classes. Students and other attendees, it was great to have you. We're so glad you were able to be here today. Thank you, everyone. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,